So, OBS has been out for quite some time now, and I've done a tutorial on how to use OBS and how to stream to Twitch quite a while back now as well, a couple months back. So OBS released OBS Studio about 6 to 7 months ago, and I've been waiting till this moment to do a sort of tutorial, but it won't be a full tutorial just because I already done one with the old OBS software. So if you want a full tutorial, you'll have to check the link down below. It'll be linked to the old video, and yeah. So I'm going to be looking at OBS Studio, which has a couple changes, and I spent some time going over it myself because there are a few bugs in the software that makes it a bit confusing on what to do. So I'm going to open up OBS Studio, and I'm going to look at some of the settings and some of the renamed sort of settings there are. So there are a couple settings that are very familiar with the old OBS software that has renamed itself in the new software that's multi-platform. So before you guys download OBS Studio, I want you guys to actually download the one that's plus browser source, which is the CLR browser, which allows you to do Twitch alerts and the other things that I showed you to do in the last tutorial. So I want you guys to download that, and then when we get into the software, you can see that the preview's already open. Now I know I'm recording, but this is how it will be straight off the bat. You'll have a black background in terms of you won't have the desktop because you wouldn't have had it added the source. But this is where one of the changes has also happened. So when we go to add source, we can see that monitor capture isn't called monitor capture anymore. It will be called display capture. Now this is a small change, but it got me a bit confused for a second there, just because I didn't realize what was happening with the source. I want you guys to also know that please use the 64-bit because the 32-bit has a couple issues with USB recording microphones. Now I don't know why, but it records the audio from the microphone of your headset perfectly fine, but it'll seem to sort of ruin the desktop audio. It'll appear and it'll show at the bottom, but it won't actually play into your software. Now when you're doing playback with OBS Studio recorded videos, I want you guys to use something called Vlc Media Player. A lot of people have this. It's like a better thing to use than the video playback given to you by Windows 10. And for some reason in the Windows 10 player, the audio or the desktop audio itself and the microphone audio doesn't seem to play back through that software. So Vlc Media opens that up and allows you to actually monitor if your audio was there in the first place, which is great. But it's a little kink in OBS Studio. So you'll notice obviously the preview is open straight away. So if I go to settings, you can see that the settings have changed completely. Instead of having like user profiles and all that within the general area, you just have these two little things. I've got it to a dark theme, but you can also have it to a default scheme, which is like very similar to the old OBS. So when we go to stream, you've got your stream key, your services. There's a multiple services. You can have a custom one, you can add your URL, all of that same stuff as you could find in the old OBS tutorial. All of that will be in the link below, as I said before. In the output, now this is where things change quite a bit. So instead of having it sort of for user profiles, now you can do individual settings for different things. So for my streaming, obviously I've rescaled output to 1920 by 1080, or sorry 720p, and obviously I've used a max bitrate of 3500, which there's no real point to go over 3500 because Twitch downscales it anyway, the bitrate. So that's the most anyone will do, especially if you haven't got a partnership, because you don't have servers to downscale resolution, bitrate and other things. You just have one setting, and not everyone can do 1080p 60 fps, and I've got 720p 60 fps here. So when we go into recording, we've obviously got 1920 by 1080 because we're not going to be downscaling. You have multiple formats that you can use. Mine's grayed out at the moment because I can't really change it. However, with this one, I've chosen MP4. There is FLV and I think MCS or the other formats. I would recommend MP4 because it's just a universal format. The other ones don't support multiple audio tracks like FLV is saying there at the bottom. And it's a bit messed up when you're trying to do it in other software or editing other software. So yeah, I would stick with MP4, like I said in the previous tutorial as well. Now the max bitrate, I would recommend 8,000 for most people. I've gone for 9,000 just because I can handle 9,000. And yeah, so I've gone for keyframe intervals of 2 seconds. I had this setting from the previous my previous OBS software because I've copied and pasted pretty much all my settings. It's just getting used to some of the new sort of layout of the software, but most things are the same. So if you go through audio, now this is something that I've noticed as well with OBS software. With the desktop audio device, I've obviously got my speakers or my headset that I'm using to record this at the moment, but with desktop audio, my default device always defaults to the USB mic, but if I set this to default, I would not be able to record desktop audio. For some reason, this is a bit of a bug within the OBS software, or OBS Studio I should say, and it causes no audio to be played. So I've done it so that the desktop audio is straight away to the USB mic, that I'm hearing stuff through, like the game sounds, the any desktop sound basically will be going through my USB mic or USB headset, sorry. And so I've set that as the default desktop audio device, so it catches the headset's audio. Now also the mic auxiliary will obviously be the mic that I'm using, but you can see with OBS Studio now we can use multiple audio devices, so you can set multiple desktop audio. So if you wanted to capture just your Skype chat and separate it from the desktop so that you have multiple levels of sound, so that you can edit it better within a software, or you can just use the mixer over here and you can just sort of lower the desktop audio or increase the desktop audio and make the Skype audio very low if you wanted to do that. Don't know why. Or if you're in a track editor for say Sony Vegas, I've inputted my videos into Sony Vegas and there's about 4 audio tracks because I'm recording all 4. Some don't have sound, but that's obviously because I don't have input devices. But when you have input devices, they'll work great, so that's fine. So yeah, and then video is basically just the base resolution. It's the same thing that you saw previously, but this is where you'll have the FPS counter and also your downscale filter that I showed you in the previous OBS video. And obviously I go for Lanczos sharpen scaling 32 sampling. So basically this is a brief overview of OBS Studio. There are a few minor changes, but you guys should know from the previous OBS tutorial how to add sources and CLR sort of URLs for the alerts and other things. So I hope you guys liked the brief overview of OBS Studio and I hope you found it helpful, because I found some caveats when I was using this software. I still prefer using the old OBS software for now, but into the future I think I'll be using OBS Studio. There was just a couple things, a couple bugs to look over. If you do have any bugs, just ask in the comments below, and I'll be there to help you guys if you have anything to sort of look at. So I hope you guys enjoyed this brief overview, and I'll see you in the next one.